Dumelang Sambanani, hello South Africa. A very warm welcome to Expressions. This is definitely the place for you to air your views. I'm your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
And I'm your host, Mngolisi Masango. Now, each year, the 25th of November up till the 10th of December, we kickstart 16 days of activism. Now, this is an action campaign against one of the world's most persistent violations of human rights. Now, violence against women. Violence against women and children, unfortunately, continues to occur at an alarming scale, Konalamzans Africa. I'm trying to see Expressions Siyabuza. Are we doing enough to support the call of 16 days of activism, Jackie?
And Nicole, that's a very important question. But there are young people such as Utabo Nonkenkge, who has heeded the call to curb GBV in South Africa. I got an opportunity to talk to him and learn a little bit more about his smart device called SOS. And this is what took place. Tabo, a very warm welcome to Expressions. Thank you so very much for sitting down and having this chat with us. Tell us a little bit more about SOSS. Why the name? Why even put together an app like this?
We thought that Save Our Souls is fair, right? And it's an emergency button that's global, but let's find a way to emphasize it. Mm-hmm. And so really how the platform works is a combination of what we would call peer-to-peer, which is I can reach you when you have a distress signal. And for people in remote areas or people in areas where they don't necessarily think they have a community, what then happens is that we're able to consolidate these emergency services in a B2C or business to customer kind of way, so that what it means is you have armed response, you have medical aid entities, so your EMS, fire departments as well. We tried as best as possible, and basically all of them get your signal when you're distressed, including your loved ones.
Let's say I'm here and I'm feeling threatened. Who will be my immediate help?
So you download the app immediately and you have access to everyone who you have a phone number of. You can decide and you can curate who receives your distress signal. Upon having pressed the button, it sends out your live location. Having sent out your live location, it then needs to stay on so that you can be found, right? So let's suppose you added 350 people to what we will call your circle. All 350 people will receive it regardless of where they are in the world. It'll come as an in-app notification, it can come as an email. What the beauty is about it is that as soon as I respond, so let's suppose you're upstairs or you're downstairs or you're in the next room, I'm able to switch on what we call the camera for audio visual data collection. And that can be anything from evidence if you'd like to pursue a case. It stays encrypted on your profile. Lastly, which is a very new feature, we've added the ability for you to find preemptively police stations, pharmacies, fire departments. And so the app had to then create not just the ability to respond, but a sustainable chain of insisting that we can actually stay out of trouble proactively.
It's literally just the pushing of a button.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
In terms of data, in terms of airtime, is it free? I mean, talk to us about that, because a lot of young people are like, it's not data.
So on the data side, all we need you to have is a positive balance.
Is it accessible to young people in rural spaces and township spaces?
We just need an area that has the coverage in terms of 3G. You don't necessarily need a SIM card. You don't necessarily need that SIM card to have data. But what you do is that you need that device, and by that I mean the watch or the button, including the cell phone, to really just have a battery. You can be covered pretty much anywhere in South Africa. I think the only place we haven't tested in terms of geographically is Robben Island, but absolutely everyone has cover.
So that was my conversation with Uthabo on his very innovative and smart device called SOS. But of course, we want to unpack this very important issue around gender-based violence. And of course, as we are putting a spotlight on the issue of 16 Days of Activism campaign, I am joined by Lesego Mahlangu, who is the head of research from #NotInMyName. Lesego, very warm welcome to Expressions. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having us, Jackie.
No, it's good to have you here. So let's talk about smart devices that sort of speak to the issues that are on the ground. I mean, as #NotInMyName, you know, having to have dealt with a lot of cases around GBV, do you think such smart devices are effective? Can they really make a difference in this pandemic that we're facing in our country?
Thank you so much for that. I think innovation in its sense is going to help society move forward in any regards, and gender-based violence also being one of them, violence in schools also being one of them, violence towards kids also being one of them. You look at the backlog right now with DNA tests right now. If we had an innovative, scientific, invested society, I thought it would have been far better for us to actually delve into now getting the perpetrators, getting them to be accountable and having scientific proof behind that. We worked closely with SOS from the beginning of the year this year, and the innovation is quite a groundbreaking take, you know, to say that let women have access to safety at the literally dial of their fingers, right? It's expensive, not to say the least, and I think if government can look into avenues such as young people trying to find solutions for themselves, I think innovation is definitely the best way to look into.
And you know what I really enjoyed about just, you know, interacting with SOS was the fact that it is preemptive and not reactive, right? And we deal within a space where whenever we're dealing with GBV, it's always reactive. This is what happened to a girl child. This is what happened to a child, you know, in essence. You know, there was the Protea Glen, the girl who was dismembered. She was found in a fridge, in some guy's fridge. Fort Hare, a law student as well, who was harmed. Attridgeville, I mean, the cases go on and on and on. I want to find out on the ground, what are you doing to make sure that we are more proactive?
Okay, towards 16 Days of Activism, NotInMyName is launching our Beyond 16 Days Activism. For the past 4 years, having been in a gender-based violent activist organization, we've always been getting like interviews just closer to 16 Days of Activism, you know, and it has been highlighted as some kind of trend, right? And we are beginning to note this at quite troublesome also as well. There's a Pretoria cabal of women, informal settlement informal business women who are doing a number of businesses that were informal, and they were unfortunately scattered all over the country, all over Pretoria, because when malls are being built, then the informal settlement then gets to then move outside of like their prison of doing business. And so our next project is going to be with those women, and we want to look into making sure that women get into streams of economic empowerment, because an empowered woman is a woman that has enough to actually go and move out of vulnerable situations. But a disempowered woman, a woman who has no source of income, a woman who has no access, is a woman that is frankly and unfortunately very much vulnerable in our society.
Do you feel that we are doing enough to support the call of 16 Days of Activism? How do we operate outside of just this period and just make sure that this is something that we are conversating about, discussing?
Sure.
You know what I mean? When we're talking about real conversations that affect young people, that this is top of mind. How do we do that?
Part of our Beyond 16 Days is looking at how the media has been reporting on 16 Days of Activism, right? And how have they been productive in terms of articulating what gender-based violence is and how does it find expression for different women in society. I would like us to moving away from the narrative of the woman constantly being a victim, right? And now talk about women trying to move ahead and move out of victimhood and into empowerment. But also realizing other strains of gender-based violence also as well. Women not being paid as much as their counterparts, it's gender-based violence. Women not having access to social reproductive health is gender-based violence. Children not having access to sanitation and not going to school because of sanitation is gender-based violence also as well. So the narrative of it just being simply understood as a man beating a woman, you know, man raping a woman, course they do, but we should understand that how it's informed by a systematic approach and a systematic culture that constantly devalues women, that constantly abuses women, the labor of women. And so when that kind of when we operate in that kind of environment, it makes it far easier for the man on the ground to think that any woman that is walking past him is literally nothing.
And, you know, obviously we have to go to a quick ad break, but I think it's very important for young people, Gagai, to really understand that this has to exist beyond just membership. I think as young people, you need to be mobilized towards change. And hopefully from the show that we're having today, from seeing young people such as Uleseho and Thabo, you'll be encouraged to do your part to make a difference when it comes to gender-based violence, so that we live beyond the hashtags, and then it's not really just about a slogan and a time that we are commemorating the year and it happens over and above that. But we continue with this also important conversation after the break. You are watching Expressions.
Expressions caught up with Usisponso, where she told us of her story of how she suffered abuse of her then lover that left her with third-degree burns. Fast forward to 2020, her perpetrator is yet to get his day in court. Let's go and meet her. Tell us what actually happened.
In 2014, it was on Monday. I was preparing for work. Then there came my husband. And all of a sudden, just took a bottle, poured an acid on me. I went to hospital. Later on in May, I opened a case. And since then, the case has been closed, opened, reopened.
Why was the case closed in the first place?
I was told that I'm the one who went and closed the case.
Did you?
On my request of the statement of withdrawing the case, that's when it was reopened without even consultation to why now.
You didn't go and close the case?
I didn't, because I was hospitalized for almost a year. So how can I have done that?
Do you feel like the justice system has let you down?
Big time. One thing that I can tell you, this pandemic has shown me how affected I really am. Firstly, I can't wear a mask properly. I have to wear a specially made, the one that I cannot even afford. So I have to use the one that I can afford and adjust it so that I can even put it because of my right ear. So it shows me that our justice system is very, very, very vague. Our laws are very intact, but those who should be doing the implementation are the ones that are failing us.
Well, Spinde Simbingela Snamgele, you're still watching Expressions, your #1 youth current affairs show. Namhlanje, we are putting a spotlight on 16 days of activism campaign that raises awareness among South Africans about a negative impact of gender-based violence. Namhlanje siyabuza, are we doing enough to support the call of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence? And of course, I'm now joined by Thabo Nongenge, who is the inventor and creator, right, of the SOS app, as well as Usesu Sponso Seromula, who joins us on the line. Sisponso Sigbingelela Skwamgele kwi Expressions. It's great to have you on the show. Siswami, see Expressions, we followed your journey as a victim, gender-based violence. Ako usitshela mhlawumbe uthatha ubabeke esithombeni kancane nje ama-viewers yethu ngento eyakuvelela.
Okay, so and the viewers, yes, back in 2014, ngiye ngashifa with an acid. And I've been fighting for this case since 2014 until now, still seeking justice. And to date, as I told you, but today I haven't given up yet because this has risen way above us. As much as Amanyama victims are no longer with us, they can no longer fight for themselves. I'm here fighting for myself and those who can no longer say what happened to them.
Ake sikhulume sesponso, mhlambe indlela ozizwa ngayo njengamanje. Do you feel like you've been somehow failed by ingalo yomthetho? Because we're having a conversation yakho nge-16 days of activism, a conversation yakho we've had last year as well. And wena omanye wama cases lawo eswaziyo, there are so many other cases esingazi about which are currently happening as it is. Ama statistics ayasitshela ukuthi abantu besifazane are being abused every second, Sisponso. Do you feel like you've been failed?
big time in policy because the journey from 2014 to date, I believe some women will have given up by now, knocking all these doors, seeking justice without any help. Because we trust in our law systems, that's why we go to the police, we go to court and everywhere. Then if then they cannot help you or take your case seriously, because in a case of gender-based violence, remember the perpetrators are some people that we know, people that live within us in the society, people we went to church with or at those places. We see them every day. So you could imagine the trauma that we live with every day from 2014 to date. And our courts are there, postponing cases, every appearances. So you could imagine that you are being re-victimized every day. Like what happened to me, it was not enough. Then the system is also victimizing me going forward.
Yo, Thabo, I need to bring you into this conversation. Sponsor washiswa umuntu beyahlekisana naye at that time nge-asset. And I remember me and her have touched base on several occasions. We've had a conversation. And it's clear to see, as umphakathi, we're failing our victims with gender-based violence. I know we've seen the insert of Epiako. Talk to me about why you felt it was important ukuthi ube ne-app enje, because I know we also spoke about a proactive and not a reactive app. Talk to me about that.
So SOS basically is an app that gives you a chance to say, not only am I in trouble, but what nature of trouble am I in, number one, and who can kind of come to me in terms of my consent, because the kind of problems that we're facing in specific to the gender-based violence issue is a very personal problem, one that needs me to give you my consent to respond to it. And so we found a way to get you, as the person who's in trouble, to basically give us the permission. And so this is one of the features in the app that say there's a numberless or an unlimited number of phone numbers that you can include, right? This is also on top of the fact that there's private armed response. And so what we try to do is say, we can wait for the police. We do believe in the law. We believe, obviously, in private security personnel. We believe in private medical personnel. But the community is what was missing in this entire equation. And so our platform then creates the ability for the neighbor, for the aunt, for the child, anyone who I have given consent to respond to my issues. And so I think similarly for ladies in the situation that she's in, we've got the ability to say, there needn't be an overt response, there needs to be an appropriate response. And by overt, I mean, it's likely that if I come in and you're assaulting your wife, I'm a man, I might be able to handle you. But the truth is that when there are other people watching, when there are police on their way, when there's a community, a collective response to the problem, we found that it actually works.
Actually, that's what I wanted to get into. You just led me straight into my next question. The people who abuse abantu besifazane in our communities are not strangers.
Absolutely.
It's people we know.
Yeah.
It's my friend, it's your friend, it's the guy next door. Yeah. So how do I go about reporting such instances, Gule Epiako? Is there some sort of anonymity that is granted to the person that's reporting? Or iripotwa umuntu that's experiencing it? Or can it just be just about anyone who's experiencing something, maybe a next door?
So to your question, yes, because what you can do is, as an observer of the problem, you can call an alert. So let's suppose it is a room where there are no cell phones and it's supposedly a bedroom. I know sometimes people say no screens in the bedroom, which means no laptops, no cell phones. We know that it's an area where the platform, our SOS app, doesn't actually have access. But if I hear commotion, if I think something's happening, I'm able to then say there's a problem and it's here. And I'm not going to hear it without being geographically close to it. So now it means that people are going to think, yes, they're going to see my name on their screens, but when they come to me, I'm saying there's a problem next door. And so we can then collaborate, I think is the best word, with both the security companies and the authorities, not just with each other, so that it's a clear intervention and not a rescue or a heroistic kind of approach to the problem.
So sponsor, now before we also let you go, akukhulume nathi mhlambe ngenyathelo soke wayithatha thus far, because I know icase yakho has been dragged now for years. Into nje ofisa ukuyibona njengamanje, talk to us about how far the case is and what essentially you'd like to see happen.
Okay, yes, in my case, it's very high during the 16 days. You can feel that I'm in court and dealing with my case. Then after 16 days, there is postponement after postponement. You can even rehearse what will the magistrate say, what will the prosecutor say, what will the attorney say, because it's one and the same thing, appearance after appearance, until the 16 days, and then after that it dies. Since the last appearance, no witness has been called. It's almost 10 to 11 months now. No witnesses has been called. It's been postponement after postponement. Right now it's 16 days, then we hear things moving slowly, and then come January, then nothing else. Like in churches, the activism, if the pastor has done something based on gender-based violence, the activism should not go to court. It should go to that church so that it creates the feeling that this person has done something wrong. Then
it gets to the root. It gets to the root of it, indeed. Sisponso, we actually wish you all the best as expressions, and we will take up your case, Silandelele, and just find out why is the justice system and why all the involved parties stalling at this particular point in time. All strength to you from Expressions and the rest of the team. Thank you so much, Sisponso. Thabo, thank you so much for your time as well. Keep it up on that app. We'll be tracking progress on it as well. Now you are still watching Expressions. We're hot off the heels of 16 days of activism against women and child abuse. Do join us after the break. We continue with this all important discussion.
If you just joined us, a very warm welcome to Expressions. Today, we are putting a very important spotlight on 16 Days of Activism campaign. And the poll question that we're asking you, Kochai, is simply this. Are we doing enough to support the call of 16 Days of Activism in South Africa? And of course, we're going to wrap up this conversation. And there, of course, have been really great insights. And I'm still with Lesego. And Lesego, I think because we just really want to consolidate all the information that we received today. I mean, GBV is a serious issue in South Africa. We've already, sort of affirmed and validated the importance of the fact that it has to exist beyond the 16 days, and conversations have to exist beyond hashtags. I mean, what is your message to young people out there? But most importantly, them being able to heed the call and being active and mobilizing themselves to make a difference in this area.
I think, Jackie, like our Beyond 16 Day is trying to drive a question around narrative. And I think women have almost done everything. Women have shouted, women have screamed, women have cussed to say that we are tired of the violence that's being imposed onto our bodies. And the difference that we'd like to see right now, how about next time when Mko is talking to the perpetrator, why did you burn Sisponso? How did you get to a space in a time where you felt like it's okay to literally burn someone's body who you literally could have died? And I think that's about time that the GBV starts centering men in the conversation and literally start getting to the root of why do men feel it's okay to be violent, firstly towards each other, then others in society also as well.
A big thank you, Lesego, for being part of the show. And I think you've given us a lot of food for insight, especially when it comes to the issue of changing the narrative and making sure that men are centralized in the conversations that we're having around GBV. And of course, that was Lesego Mahlangu, who is the head of research from #Not in My Name. And I'm going to invite, please come through. I think there's so many takeaways on today's conversation that we're having around 16 Days of Activism. I absolutely applaud people like Thabo who are making sure that men are championing these conversations. And whether it's around technology, innovation, but men are part of this very pivotal conversation and making a difference in our society. So halala
and don't forget to shinjo if you see or witnessing something, there's no such, you report it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your contribution. Until next time in Senegal.
Adios, muchachos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.